America sanctioned so many countries that all other countries had to consider the US dollar all but useless. It wasn't, however, until two of America's biggest enemies circumvented those sanctions that the first of the final nails were driven into the coffin that would house the New World's corpse. Though other countries like India had ignored the empire's decree, it was China trading oil from Iran with infrastructure. Instead of utilizing any currency, China offered up roads, water treatment, and other services through a barter system that America could not stop. Chinese companies offered their ability to build as opposed to America's persistent offers of manipulation and theft of resources. In the end, America's leaders could not even say that their foreign policies benefited anyone other than the richest of elites in the United States. Those claims fell on deaf ears as more and more Americans inched closer and closer towards poverty due to the rising necessity to incur greater debts to survive. Debts that could never be paid off, debts that would burden people for successive generations. One of the greatest ironies in regard to American sanctions was the outcome that those who issued them did not intend. While being utilized to destabilize the economies of other nations in an attempt to cause unrest amongst the citizens of those other countries, American sanctions worked more to destabilize the economy of the United States. This came about because those countries sanctioned figured out ways to bypass use of the US dollar when importing or exporting goods. So while America alienated potential trading partners to the point that 40% of the world's consumers viewed the US dollar as worthless, there were simply too many problems tied to that currency to not figure out ways to conduct business without using it. In America, the people lost more wealth every day until the uprising. Details about the uprising to follow. But basically, it was a time when a majority of the population in America turned its back on their homeland, as they rightfully believed it had turned its back on them. Whether it was the misinformation that was delivered on the nightly news, or direct statements or lies as delivered by one bought politician or another, the people had enough. And when those who had taken an oath to defend the country against its enemies realized that those enemies responsible for the growing pain and suffering of their friends and family members was coming at the hands of a government that continually transferred wealth from more than 99% of the country to 1% or less of their constituents, the end was nigh, at least for the American empire. Of course, the nation known as the United States of America continued to exist. Heck, it exists to this day, but as a greatly diminished nation on the world stage. You see, what the elites who controlled everything failed to consider was that those whom they counted on for security would eventually realize that, for one, the elite didn't care about them at all. At all. And two, though the elites paid them handsomely for their loyalty, those payments only bought loyalty up to a certain point. When a tipping point was reached, all police and military personnel understood that the wealth they were earning to turn their backs on their fellow men and women was useless, as inflation robbed all but the richest of people of a life worth living. For even if these security forces could afford the best that life could offer them at the tier in the hierarchy of American society at which they found themselves, it only meant they could live in the best houses in the worst neighborhoods, or that they could afford all the trappings of the terrible, all-inclusive vacation spots. It meant that no matter where they went, the misery of poverty continually served as a reminder of the fact that they had sold out and abandoned so many. In the end, a clarion call rose up that galvanized all. As power centers around the nation fell, the following chant was heard: "Where will the rich go when they turn the earth into one giant ghetto?"